Hello students, today we are going to look at Act 3 Scene 2 of Merchant of Venice, which is there in class 10th ICSE. But before I move on, in Act 3 Scene 1 there were two mythologies which was skipped in that video. So I would like to discuss that with you people. Prodigal May, I already have told you in that video. If you look carefully, I have told you a story about the prodigal son. So, in this also, again, they have told that it was written in the New Testament, the Gospel of Luke, in Luke 15:11-32, that there was a younger son, there were two sons of a merchant, and the younger son he wanted his share of property. So, he asked from his father the share of his own share of property. He took it from his father and went away. He left his house and then he used to spend a lot of that money. He did not try to earn and save that money. His friends also became very close to him and they used to enjoy a lot and so on. Later on, when all his money was consumed and he was left without any money, he became very poor. He had no clothes even to wear, no food to eat. All his friends left him, they deserted him. And whenever he used to ask help from them, nobody used to recognize him. Ultimately, he had to go back to his father and he asked forgiveness of his father for the sins that he had committed. So, this was prodigal, and here Shylock had been using this term for Antonio. And synagogue is an assembly or house of prayer, and here Shylock at the end of this scene had asked this Tubal, the Jew, to go to a notary and ask for making the legal documents. Till then, he will have to go to the synagogue. They will all meet at a synagogue. So it is a Jewish house of prayer, and it is a large hall of prayer and has smaller rooms for study also. Just like you can say a madrasa type, where prayer is also done and small rooms for studying. And that small room is not a consecrated space, nor it is a synagogue necessary for collective worship. Jewish worship can be carried out whenever 10 Jews assemble. So, in this mythology, it is said that whenever 10 Jews they assemble together, they can perform worship at any place wherever they are meeting. But here, synagogue means a holy place where people meet for doing prayers. Now let's start with Act 3, Scene 2. This scene takes place in Portia's house in Belmont, where Bassanio is also trying his own luck. He wants to choose a caskets, and Portia initially is afraid that maybe she may lose his company. So we have got here Bassanio, Portia, Graciano, Nerissa, and their train. Now, before I move on with this, let's look at some mythologies of Act 3, Scene 2 also. And here we have got we have no mythologies over here, although some mythologies will be given inside the text that we'll be reading. So we'll start with the speech of Portia. I pray you tarry, pause a day or two before you hazard, for in choosing wrong I lose your company. Therefore forbear a while, there's something tells me. But it is not love. I would not lose you, and you know yourself. Hate counsels not in such a quality, but lest you should not understand me well. And yet a maiden hath no tongue but thought. I would detain you here some month or two before you venture for me. I could teach you how to choose right, but then I am forsworn, so will I never be. So may you miss me, but if you do, you'll make me wish a sin that I had been forsworn. Beshrew your eyes, they have overlooked me and divided me. One half of me is yours, the other half yours. Mine own, I would say, but if mine, then yours, and so all yours. Oh, these naughty times put bars between the owners and their rights, and so, though yours, not yours, prove it so. Let fortune go to hell for it, not I. I speak too long, but 'tis price the time to eke it and draw it out in length, to stay you from election. Now, here Portia seems quite afraid. She has an apprehension that maybe Bassanio may not choose the right casket, and so she is asking Bassanio to wait for a while, and before he hazards, means before he takes a risk of choosing the casket, she asks him to tarry. Tarry means to wait for a while. And then she says that I want to enjoy the pleasure of your company before you go and take a risk of choosing the casket. So I want you to give me some company. I want to remain in your company. There is something in me which is telling me, an instinct inside me that is telling me, though it is not love, but it is telling me to prevent you from choosing the casket presently. And I wish I do not lose you, because if I lose you, then it will be a great loss for me. And hate counsels not in such a quality. She says that, see, it is not hatred. That is a feeling that is coming inside me, is not hatred. Neither it is love, because hatred cannot give me a good advice as I am having in my heart that I should prevent you from choosing the casket. And I think you should try to understand me, because a maiden who has some feelings for any person in her heart cannot speak, but it is only by her eyes that she can tell that how much she respects and loves that person. I wish I could detain you or prevent you from choosing the casket and remain here for a month or two. And I wish I could teach you. I could give you some advice how to choose a right casket. But in that case, then I will be breaking the oath which I had taken, and I had promised to my father not to tell anybody about the casket. So it would be a sin for me, because I had already taken an oath to my father. So she says that you should curse your eyes, because your eyes had seen me and they had divided me into two halves. One half of my body is yours, the other half which belongs to me is also yours. So on the whole, I am for you entirely. I belong to you entirely. But these naughty times means, she says that these times are so wicked because they put a hindrance between the right of the owner, the rights or the authorities that an owner has, but the time has, you can say, bounded the hands of that owner. That means she wants to say that because of the promise that I have given to my father, I cannot teach you how to choose the right casket. Then she says that if anything wrong happens, then fortune is to be blamed for it, not me. Then she says that you must be thinking that why I'm talking so long. I'm talking so long so that the time is extended, and I want to extend this time as long as so that you may not be able to choose a casket today, and this time may be postponed. Bassanio says, let me choose, for as I am, I live upon the rack. So Bassanio says, please let me choose the casket, because I want to try my luck. It seems as if you are torturing me, and you have hung me on a rack and torturing me a lot. I want to try out my luck. Then Portia says, upon the rack. Bassanio, then confess what treason there is mingled with your love. Bassanio, none but that ugly treason of mistrust, which makes me fear she enjoying of my love. There may as well be amity and life tween snow and fire as treason and my love. Now Portia says, do you think I am hanging you on a rack? Are you on rack, Bassanio? Then tell me what type of deceitment you want to make. Is your love having a mixture of deceitment? Do you want to cheat on me? Then Bassanio says, no, it is not cheating, or it is not any kind of disloyalty towards you, but it is only the feeling of fear. That fear that which makes me, you can say, having an in confidence that maybe I may not be able to choose the right casket. So this doubt is making me feel that maybe I may fail or I may pass in choosing the casket. And you may say that there is no friendship between snow and fire. Similarly, there is no relation between love and disloyalty. So I love you truly, and there is no mixture of disloyalty in my love. Then Portia says, but I fear you speak upon the rack where men enforce to speak something. Portia says, but you are saying that you are feeling as if you are on a rack where the people are tortured so that they can speak out the truth. So what does it mean? Bassanio, promise me life and I'll confess the truth. Bassanio says, okay, if you pardon my life, then I would speak out what I have in my heart. Portia, well then, confess and live. Portia says, okay, I forgive your life, now speak whatever is there in your heart. Bassanio, confess and love had been the very sum of my confession, O happy torment, when my torturer doth teach me answers for deliverance, but let me to my fortune and the caskets. Now Bassanio says, okay, if you are in a mood to make me speak the truth, so if you had said speak the truth and love, it would have been the very gist of my confessional statement. But you have said that confess and live. Although I must say I confess in front of you that I love you very much, and this torture, this moment of torture that you are casting on me is giving me a sort of enjoyment. It is making me feel enjoy this very moment. But I request you that please lead me to the casket and let me make the choice. Portia, away then, I am locked in one of them. If you do love me, you will find me out. Nerissa and the rest stand all aloof, let music sound while he doth make his choice. Then if he lose, he makes a swan-like end, fading in music. That the comparison may stand more proper, my eye shall be the stream and watery deathbed for him. He may win, and what is music then? Then music is even as flourish when true subject bow to a new crowned monarch. Portia says, okay, if you wish so, go and choose a casket. In one of the caskets is my portrait. If you are unable to choose a right casket, then the music will be, you can say, blown in such a way as if a swan on dying, before his dying, sings a song and then dies in water itself. So my tears would be the death watery bed for you, the deathbed for you, because you will be drowned and you will be sunken in the water of my eyes, which will be dropping down through my tears. Then she says, then at that time the music will be a fading music. But if in case you are able to choose the right casket, then the music will be blown in such a way as if a newly crowned king has been enthroned. And plus the music will also be just like as if the music is blown below the window of a bride groom in order to tell him that today is your marriage. And so she says that this music is like those sweet sounds which are heard faintly by the bridegroom. Now Bassanio is going to the casket, so she is saying to and summon him to marriage. Now he goes with no less presence but with much more love than young Alcides. Now here we have been told about Alcides. Alcides was actually a young prince, and he was Hercules actually, and he tried to save the princess Hesione from the clutches of a big giant to whom the king of Trojan had to give in order to save the rest of the people of Trojan. And in order to save that princess, the king had announced that whoever saves my daughter will be given the prize of horses. So Hercules had heard this and he saved that Princess Hesione from the clutches of that giant But it was not for love, it was only for the price of the horses that he saved her. So she says that now Bassanio is going with much more love than Alcides had for Hazoin. Because Alcides did not love Hazoin, he was in the greed of winning the horses as prize. The virgin tribute paid by Howling Troy to the sea monster. Howling Troy here means the people who were crying for the young princess that she was going to be sacrificed by that giant. I stand for sacrifice that rest aloof are the Dardanian wives. So here she compares herself with Hazoin. And she says, it seems as if I am the Princess Hazoin who is going to be sacrificed because I am standing with just depending on the fate of or the choice which Bassanio will make. So I am actually Princess Hazoin, and the rest of the people like Nerissa and all who are standing aloof are just like the Dardanian wives. That means the people of the younger ladies of the Troy who were crying for the young princess. Dardanian wives with bleared visages. Bleared visages means visage means face. Bleared means stained with tears. All of them were weeping for their young princess. So she says that Nerissa and all are also just like the Dardanian wives who were weeping tears for the young princess that she may be saved. That issue of the exploit. Issue of the exploit means all of them are watching that what would be the result of the choice that Bassanio will make. Go Hercules, live thou, I live, with much more dismay I view the fight. Then thou that makest the fray, a song to music, whilst Bassanio comments on the caskets to himself. Now she says that if you choose the right casket, you will live and I will also live. And presently I am with much more dismay. That means I am in a state of confusion, dilemma, that what will happen, what choice are you going to make? Because I am viewing this as a fight between Bassanio and the giants. That means the three caskets. So he is like Alcides and the caskets are like the giants out of which he has to rescue or choose the right casket where the portrait of Portia would be. So she demands the musicians to play the music till Bassanio chooses the right casket, and Bassanio he starts talking to himself while choosing the caskets. Now there was a song Ding Dong Bell and all. Bassanio. So may the outward shows be leads themselves, the world is still deceived with ornaments. In law, what plea so tainted and corrupt that being seasoned with a gracious voice obscures the show of evil? In religion, what damned error but some sober bro with bless it and approve it with text. Now here Bassanio, after looking at the gold casket, because in gold casket the inscription, as you people must remember, who chooseth me shall get what many men desire. After reading this inscription and looking at the gold casket, he gives his own comments, his remarks. So what is he saying? He is saying that things may appear differently from what they appear to be. They may actually be different from what is their external appearance. Then he says the world is always deceived by the outward show only. They do not try to look at the inward quality of anything. They are always deceived or lured by the outward appearance. So then he says that its falsity and unsoundness gets hidden if the advocate has a pleasing voice. He says that in a case, in a court case, if suppose a case has to be fought between the criminal and the innocent person, then the advocate he uses such a pleasing voice and he speaks in such a you can say tactical manner that the victim is always saved from the court. So he tries to hide the inner secrets and expose only those secrets which he wants to, and expose only those things which he wants to show to the uh, judge. And so the victim is always saved from such cases where the advocates are using false arguments and in such a way that it seems to be true. In religion also, whenever the greatest priests have to hide their sins, the sins that they have committed, they start speaking the text from the scriptures in such a way as to justify themselves that The people think that they are innocent. Then he says further, there is no vice so simple but assumes some mark of virtue on his outward parts. How many cowards whose hearts are all as false as stairs of sand wear yet upon their chins the bears of Hercules and frowning Mars, who inward searched have livers white as milk. Now, there is no vice means there is no bad habit, no vice or bad habit, which is so simple that it cannot be taken with some virtuous quality. Now, there are some people in the world who are covered from inside, but they try to show their outward appearance as if they are very brave people. So, most of the people, in order to show themselves brave, they put beards on their faces at the chin in such a way as if they look as Hercules and Mars were the brave people. But when searched inwards, they are so covered that they have their livers as white as milk. They are so much, you can say, fearful from inside. Uh, and these assume but valor excrement to render them redoubted. But these people, they try to show from their outward appearance with their beards and all that, yes, they are the most brave people. They put on beards, which is believed to be the sign of bravery. But look carefully at beauty also. Then he speaks about beauty. That means, first of all, he speaks about the advocates who try to use false arguments and present them in such a way as if those arguments seem to be the truth. Second is how the priests they try to hide their sins that they have done by quoting the text from the scriptures in order to prove themselves innocent. Third is some people who try to show themselves that they are brave. They put on beards and put on some physical appearance in such a way as if they are trying to show that they are the very brave people. Now, fourth is the beauty. So, let's see. To render the look on beauty, and you shall see it is purchased by weight, which therein works a miracle in nature, making them light as that wear most of it. So are those crisp, snaky golden locks, which make such wanton gambols with the wind, upon supposed fairness often known to be the dowry of a second head. The skull that bred them in the sepulchre, thus ornament is but the guile shore to a most dangerous sea. The beauteous scarf veiling an Indian beauty, in a word, the seeming truth which cunning times put on to entrap the wisest. Therefore, then, thou gaudy hard good for Midas, I will none of thee. Now, here he speaks about beauty. That if you look at beautiful ladies, actually they look so beautiful because of the cosmetics or the makeup that they wear on their face. But that beauty has been purchased through amounts, through the chemist shop or through any other cosmetic shops, and that works out to be a miracle, and they look so beautiful from outside. It makes them look more fairer. Lightest here has been used in two terms. They look lightest, that means they look fair, but that doesn't mean that they are not light in nature. And here the other light means that they are unfaithful in nature, they are not loyal in nature. Then there are some wanton gambles. That means some curls of the golden locks which the ladies have, which try to just fly off in the air and they look so beautiful. Those hairs are actually not their own. Those hairs have been picked up from the head or the skull of those ladies who have died and are now lying in the graves. So the hairs of such ladies have been taken out and a wig has been put on such ladies who look so beautiful because of the curls on their hair and the you can say the hair flying in the air. So it means that the beauty is just like a dangerous shore of a sea which you cannot see, and you are prone to drown into the sea. So, in a word, he says that truth is always not revealed, but it has been always, you can say, veiled, veiled by the falsity. Here he speaks about the example of an Indian beauty also. They put on the veils on their faces, and people think that the most beautiful lady may be hidden behind the veil. But when that veil is taken off, then the ugly face of that woman is revealed. And so he says that this Gaudi, or the bright colored this or shiny gold, I do not prefer to take, because it was just like a curse for King Midas also. As you people know that Midas had received a boon that whichever thing he touches should turn into gold. So one day when he touched his own daughter, she also turned into gold. Whenever he used to eat, he couldn't eat because every food was converted into gold. So he says that, so my choice is very clear that I will not choose gold. Nor none of thee, thou pale and common drudge, between man and man, but thou meagre lead, which rather threatenest than dost promise aught. Thy paleness moves me more than eloquence. And here choose I joy, to joy be the consequence. Now he says, even I will not choose the pale silver, because it is used as, you can say, currency of exchange between man to man, and so it has become pale in color, so it has no importance for me. But as far as lead is concerned, though the metal is in such a color that it tries to threaten, but I don't know why I'm attracted towards such a dull metal, and it promises something. So here I choose this casket, and I wish that I should get joy as a consequence. Portia, how all other passions flee to air as doubtful thoughts, and rash embrace despair, and shuddering fear, and green eyed jealousy, O love me moderate allay, thy ecstasy, in measure run thy joy, scant this access, I feel too much, thy blessing make it less, for fear I surfeit. So now Portia says how quickly all other passions are vanishing out of me. The feelings of doubt, fear, anxiety have all vanished immediately from my heart, and which causes shaking of the body. Although the fear is still there in my, some fear is there in my body, because it is making me shake. That what will be the result of choosing of the casket. And green eyed jealousy run away into the air. Oh, love, you should be moderate in your joy. Check this excessive pleasure and let it fall on me in moderation. Because she knows already, she had seen that when Morocco had chosen the gold casket, what had been the result. When Aragon had chosen the silver casket, what was the result? And now she was very happy, because she says that you should be very happy, my love, that you have chosen the right casket, and you should enjoy that pleasure that would be the result of this. I am overwhelmed by this excessive joy. I am so much happy from inside that Bassanio ultimately has made the right decision. Make this pleasure less, lest I should feel disgusted because of an excess of it. Now she tries to calm herself, that calm down, calm down. This excessive pleasure is making me so much excited that what to say. So she tries to calm herself. Bassanio, what find I here? He opens the lead casket, fair Portia's counterfeit. What demigod had come so near creation moved these eyes, or whether riding on balls of mine seem they in emotion? Here are severed lips, parted with sugar breath, so sweet a bar should sunder. Such sweet friends here in her hairs. The painter plays a spider and had woven a golden mesh, entrapped the hearts of men faster than gnats and cobwebs. But her eyes, how could he see to do them? Having made one, methinks it should have power to steal both his and leave itself unfurnished. Yet look how far the substance of my praise doth wrong this shadow in underprizing it. So far this shadow doth limp behind the substance. Here's a scroll, the continent and summary of my fortune reads. When Bassanio opens the casket, he says, what have I found? Oh, it's a portrait of Portia, and it looks so beautiful. It seems as if Her eyes are either moving or either I'm moving, and so I feel that her eyes are also moving with me. And look at her lips, they are half parted as if two friends are talking to each other. They are half parted in order to take a sweet breath. And as far as her hair are concerned, it seems as if the artist had made a mesh of web in her hair, in her golden hair, as if they are like the web of the spider, which can entrap the heart of many men. And so far as her eyes are concerned, they are so beautiful that how could that painter, who is considered to be the demigod, that means he must have been a half god who has made such a perfect picture of Portia, then how could he see into that eyes? Because the eyes are so bright and beautiful. I think that one of his eyes, that he has not painted one of the eyes of Portia, because when he was painting one of the eyes of Portia, then he would have become blind because of that. They were so bright and beautiful, they are so magical. Then he says that after he had painted one eye, I think he should have lost both his own eyes, and thus he was unable to complete that portrait. But these words of praise are less than the beauty of this picture. I cannot praise more than the words that I have are less than whatever the beauty of that portrait is. And then he says, okay, there's a scroll of paper, let me read it. Since his fortune falls on you, be content and seek no new. Sorry, it is start from here. You that choose not by view, chance as fair and choose as true. Since this fortune falls to you, be content and seek no new. If you be well pleased with this and hold your fortune for your bliss, turn you where your lady is and claim her with a loving kiss. So the scroll was also giving some beautiful message that this chance has been given to you. You are lucky that you have received this chance, and you have chosen the thing not from the outer appearance but from the internal beauty. So you have got this beautiful picture of portrait of Portia. Now, since this luck has fallen on you, you have been considered to be the lucky person. You should be contented with whatever you have received. And now, if you consider that this is the fortune that you deserve, you should go to your lady and give her a kiss. A gentle scroll, fair lady, by your leave I come by no to give and to receive, like one of two contending in a prize, that thinks he had done well in people's eyes. Hearing applause and universal shout, giddy in spirit, still gazing in a doubt, whether those peals of praise be his or no. So thrice fair lady, stand I even so, a doubtful whether what I see be true, until confirmed, signed, ratified by you. So Bassanio goes to Portia and he says that as per the scroll, I have come to you to give and take the kiss. But I am quite confused and confounded, as I cannot make out why the people are so much applauding. It seems as if the two people were running a race and I have become the winner. They are applauding in such a way as, but it is making so much doubtful in my spirit that I cannot make out whether they are clapping for me or not. So I want you to confirm and tell me whether these people are applauding for my decision or what. Because I cannot believe my eyes, whatever I am seeing, is it true or not? So it will be better if you confirm and tell me whether all is true. Portia, you see me, Lord Bassanio, where I stand, such as I am, though for myself alone. I would not be ambitious in my wish to wish myself it much better yet for you. I would be trebled 20 times myself, 1,000 times more fair, 10,000 times more rich, that only to stand high in your account, I might in virtues, beauties, livings, friends, exceed account, but the full sum of me, in sum of nothing, which to term in cross is an unlessoned girl, unschooled, unpracticed, happy in this. She is not yet so old, but she may learn happier than this. Now Portia says, you see, Lord Bassanio, I am standing in front of you, and I am um Although for my own sake, I'm not so ambitious enough to wish that I may be 20 times, I would like to be 60 times better than whatever I am presently. For your sake, I would like to be many times more beautiful, richer, and better. That means I would like to be, you can say, 1,000 times beautiful, 10,000 times more rich than whatever I am. So I wish to exceed in terms of virtues, beauties, property, and friends. So she says that whatever I have got presently, I want to exceed all of them. I would like to have more friends, more virtues, more wealth, whatever I have now, than whatever I have now. So the total sum of my qualities is very little in front of you. In order to be equal to you, I want to exceed all these, whatever I have. In actual terms, I would like to tell you that I am an uneducated and unschooled girl in terms of domestic life. But I am happy that I am not a dull person. I am not so old. And I have not been, and I am happier that I have not been bred in such a way that I am, and that I would become, or I would prove to be a dull person. And happiest of all, that my gentle spirit commits myself completely to you, that whatever you teach me, I will take it up. So happy means that she is not so old, though she is an unschooled girl, but she is not so old that she cannot learn things. Happier means that she has not been brought up in such a way that she can prove to be a dull person. And happiest means that she has committed herself completely to Bassanio, that whatever he teaches her, she will accept it. As for her lord, her governor, her king, myself, and what is mine to you and yours is now converted. So she says that you are my lord, my governor, and my king. Whatever is belongs to me now belongs to you. Till now, I was the queen of this mansion, the servants, and all the property. But now all this belongs to you. This house, these servants, this same myself, all now belongs to you. I give them with this ring to you, and you have to give me a promise that whenever you lose this ring, then our love will be finished at that moment, and be my vantage to exclaim on you, and it will be my right to blame you and to rebuke you. Then Bassanio says, Madam, you have hereft me of all words, only my blood speaks to you in my veins. And there is such confusion in my powers as after some oration fairly spoke. Then Bassanio says, Madam, you have just made me a dumb fellow that I cannot speak much more to you, but I promise you that I will keep this ring always with me, and the day when this ring is lost from me, immediately it will be the end of my day, my life. I will consider that it will be the end of my life. So you may then dare say that Bassanio is dead. And I am so much confused at how these people are applauding me and they are praising me. In such a crowd, every little thing that is said by people turns into a meaningless word because they are so much making so much of noise and happiness that I cannot understand what these people are saying. So, up till here, we are completing part 1 of Act 3, Scene 2. We'll continue with the rest part in the next video. If you have understood it, you can press the like button and subscribe to our channel. Thank you.